Welcome everybody. I would like to talk about the master solution for the multiple choice part of this exam. First question is, what is the objective of a demand-sided macroeconomic policy? It is smooth business cycle volatility. So there are two different kinds of macroeconomic policies. One is the demand-sided, short-term oriented macroeconomic policy. The objective is to smooth business cycle volatility, and the other macroeconomic policy is called supply-sided macroeconomic policy, and there the objective is to increase the growth trend of GDP. But here answer A is the right one. Second question, how does the inflation rate react in a typical recession? In a typical recession, it is the case that the inflation rate decreases. Maybe the inflation rate is even negative. Then we talk about deflation. And this can occur in case that a negative demand shock occurs. Then the demand curve will shift to the left. And it will be the case that the goods prices decrease. Therefore, inflation rates are very low or might be negative. Chapter 1, in the pizza market model, the supply and the demand diagram, the pizza price is an endogenous variable. This is true, definitely. Therefore, we are writing the price on the vertical axis because then we directly know how the shock is digested, what a shock unfolds for reactions with respect to the prices. So we are frequently putting endogenous variables on the axis of a diagram so that we directly can find out how changes affect the endogenous variables. Question number 2, in a closed economy model, the composition of GDP is given by this equation. This is wrong. It's wrong because here we have the net exports, and furthermore consumption is missing. So this answer is wrong. The growth rate of nominal GDP is higher when the inflation rate is higher. This is true. So the growth rate of nominal GDP depends on the growth rate of real GDP and the inflation rate, and the growth rate of nominal GDP will be the higher the inflation rate. Question number 6. The real wage is exogenous to the firm. This is true. One small firm is not able to affect the nominal wage because this is set by the wage setters, the labor unions, and the employer organizations. So the wage rate is not under control of a single firm, and also the price is not under control of a single firm because we assume that the firms operate in the market structure of perfect competition, and there the companies cannot influence the price because each company is too small. Question number 7. Let's assume that the goods price is 200, the wage rate is 300, and the marginal productivity of labor is equal to 1. What should we do in this situation? In this situation, one worker can produce 1 unit of output. We can sell it for 200 Danish krona, and therefore the revenues would be up by 200. But the cost would be up by 300, and therefore the profit would decrease in case that we hire more labor. So the right idea here is, in this situation, we have to lay off employees, because when we lay off employees, it is the case that we are losing 200 in revenues, but we are saving 300 in cost, so profits will increase by 100. Question number 8. In one economy, we have this output function, and the question is which percentage of GDP goes to the factor labor. We have to check the exponent here. It's 0.25. So the right answer is answer number C, that a share of 25% goes to the factor labor. Question number 9. The demand of private households for bank loan influences the money creation process. This is true. So the central bank can influence the money creation process because they can inject monetary base. They can influence the money creation process by deciding upon the minimum reserve requirements. But it's also the case that the commercial banking system is influencing the money creation process because they are supplying loans, and the private households, they are demanding loans. So this is true. Chapter number 4, Ben Bernanke's nickname is Goldfinger. This is not right. So B. The right nickname of Ben Bernanke is Helicopter Ben. Question number 11. When the separation rate increases, the steady state unemployment rate will increase. This is a negative effect on the labor market. So the companies are laying off more people. The separation rate increases, and therefore the steady state unemployment rate will increase. In a minimum wage which is above the equilibrium wage will cause unemployment. So when the minimum wage is higher than the equilibrium wage, then it will be the case that labor demand will decrease, and maybe also labor supply will increase because the minimum wage is higher, and then unemployment rate is created. Chapter 7, Paul Krugman thinks about the 2008-2009 crisis in the US. Reckless expansion of unemployment insurance increased duration of unemployment. This is wrong. It is a case that somebody else said this. It was not Paul Krugman. So Paul Krugman is a left-wing economist, and therefore he would never say this one. Chapter 12, tax revenues depend on GDP. This is wrong. Tax revenues, they still have a bar above the variable. They do not depend on GDP. There is no functional form where the taxes depend on the income variable y in our model. Chapter 12, money supply depends on GDP. This is wrong. Money supply, real money supply is given by M over P, and there is no y in this expression, M over P. Therefore, money supply does not depend on GDP. Now we switch to the more harder questions. Chapter 12, a big earthquake destroys the production capacity in one economy. How is the shock digested in the ASAD model? Compare the new long-run equilibrium with the initial equilibrium. So we have a negative shock on the supply side. The aggregate supply curve will shift to the left, and therefore in the end GDP will be down and the prices will be up. Chapter 11, ISLM model in the interest rate income diagram. The central bank increases money supply to a large extent. How does that influence the goods prices and the inflation rate? Here, we have to know that the goods prices in the ISLM model are exogenous. They do not change, and the inflation rate does not play a role in the ISLM model at all. So, the right answer is answer number C. Chapter 5, we have some information about the nominal interest rate, which is 1%, and the expected inflation rate for the next year is 4%. What does it imply for the expected real interest rate? The real interest rate, this is the nominal interest rate minus the expected inflation rate, and hence it is 1% minus 4%. The expected real interest rate is minus 3%, so it is negative. The expected real interest rate is negative. Question number 19 in chapter 5, quantity theory of money. The banknotes in circulation are 100 and the prices are 2 and the velocity is equal to 12. So money is circulating 12 times in 1 year. So M times V, that's equal to like 100 times 12, that's equal to 1,200. And when we divide by the goods prices, then we can infer like the Y variable, the level of GDP. And hence in our numerical example, it is 1,200 divided by 2. So GDP level is equal to 600 units. Question number 20. We did not cover this part in this semester, so it will not pop up in your exam. But in this exam, we have some information about the price of a Big Mac in Norwegian krona. It's equal to 60, and the US dollar, the price for one Big Mac is 3. So 60 Norwegian krona divided by 3 US dollar gives you 20 Norwegian krona for the US dollar. So this is the equilibrium exchange rate according to the Big Mac concept developed by The Economist. So 60 Norwegian krona divided by 3 US dollar, answer C is the right one. Then the equilibrium exchange rate is at 0.8 euro per US dollar. The actual is at 1 euro per US dollar. We have to know the following equation. Equilibrium exchange rate minus actual exchange rate in brackets divided by actual. This gives you the degree of under or overvaluation. So 0.8 minus 1 in brackets divided by 1. It is minus 0.2, so the euro is undervalued like by 20%. Answer B is the right one. Also this one, we did not cover this topic this year, so it will not be relevant for your exam. Yeah, answer question 22. We have one regression for Denmark. Real GDP is equal to 1.5 minus 0.2 times the change in the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate decreased by 1%, so it's a negative 1%. What is the corresponding level of the real GDP growth rate? We have to insert like minus 1 in this part of the formula. Minus 0.2 times minus 1, and that's a positive 0.2 plus the 1.5 here. So the right answer is like answer number A, 1.7. The next one, 23, chapter 10, private households decide to save more and consume less. What kind of shock in the ASAD model? It is the case that this is a negative demand shock. We talk about the demand side here. The consumers are demanding less, so aggregate demand decreases. Answer D. Let's assume that C1 is equal to 0.8. The PE curve in the Keynesian cross. So like the PE curve pops up in the Keynesian cross. Has a positive slope which is smaller than 1. So the PE curve, the slope of the PE curve is given to the marginal propensity to consume. So it's 0.8 smaller than 1. The other answer alternatives are wrong because here it's always mentioned positive slope equal to 1. This is not right. Chapter 11.1, Keynesian cross. We assume that C1 is equal to 0.8. What happens to GDP? What happens to the Y variable in case that government spending increases by 1 unit? Like here, the multiplier is given by like 1 over 1 minus C1. 1 minus C1 in the denominator, this is equal to 0.2. So 1 over 0.2, this is equal to 5. So GDP will increase by 5 units. The next one is related to the tax multiplier. The taxes increase, so it will be the case that GDP decreases. So we can directly cross out A, E, and F, because GDP decreases, it will be a negative shock. The multiplier is given by C1 over 1 minus C1. So it's 0.8 over 0.2. So the right answer is that GDP will decrease like by 4 units. 27. Money market model. What happens if the central bank increases money supply? The interest rate will decrease, so R down, and GDP is constant, because in chapter 11.2, Y is an exogenous variable. So GDP is exogenous and cannot change. Y is constant in part 11.2. Also here, like we covered this model not in detail, therefore very unlikely that this kind of question will pop up. 11.2 money market model, money supply curve is a vertical line. So answer number C is the right one. Chapter 12, which variables are endogenous in the ISLM model? Like we have two equations. We have the IS equation and we have the LM equation. So we can only solve like for two endogenous variables. And hence it is a case that here GDP and the interest rate are endogenous. We put the interest rate and the GDP level like on the vertical and horizontal axis, so that we directly know how is a shock digested, how do the endogenous variables react in case that one exogenous variable changes. Last one, what happens if the government increases government spending in the ASAD world? Compare the new long-run equilibrium with the initial equilibrium. So we have a demand shock here. Government increases government spending, and demand shocks are always digested in a way that GDP is constant. So it could be answer A or answer E. GDP is constant in case like a demand shock occurs. And here, like we talked a lot about the interest rate induced crowding out effect. So the interest rate is up and GDP is constant. So this was the solution to the multiple choice part of the mock exam. Enjoy. In case that you have questions, please just comment in the YouTube channel or send me an email. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.